Hey guys, it's me, Malunis, the guy who never introduces himself in the podcast.
Shodo!
If you're listening to the podcast, the Sodopop podcast, then you probably know that Sodo is really impressive with all the ground it covers. Sodo has been going strong since 2016 with the debut of Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, so it may be easy to take for granted all the work they really do. Here's a list that covers some of the things I'm personally impressed with. The top 10 unprecedented Sodo additions. Slight disclaimer, most of these are unique to Sodo as far as I'm aware. I'll address the ones that aren't. Number 10. First up, Kamen Rider builds Dr. Game form, which we typically know as Ex-Aid form. A potential misconception here is that this form comes from the Gamba Rising arcade game. Not so! The form does appear in Heisei Generation's final when Build transforms into Ex-Aid form. The two body halves are only presented in CGI, but hey, it still counts. For something that appears so quickly that it's forgettable, it's impressive to see it make its way into the line. There's more than a few things pre-Sodo that I wish had that sort of luck. Number 9. Kamen Rider Ex-Aid was a year full of spin-off material, and one of those things was the Kamen Rider Snipe miniseries, which was exclusive to the Blu-ray releases for the show. This features Snipe as one of the earliest riders in Ex-Aid, using a prototype version of the Bang Bang shooting Gashat. The form he takes on uses a black and white recolor of the level 1 head for Shooting Gamer, which is specifically called Shooting Gamer Proto Level 1. At a time when these very random extra forms were probably harder to cater to, it's surprising that the form actually made it into Sodo. The head for the level 1 form was included with the armor parts for Gem's Zombie Gamer form in the 5th wave. That's pretty quickly after the form would have debuted, so it's good on them for a quick delivery. Sure, the form isn't that impressive, and it does make an appearance in a flashback in the show, but this is essentially a form that's exclusive to a Blu-ray spin-off, and that's not even the most absurd thing on the list. Number 8. Ex-Aid also gave us a collection of Legend Rider forms over the course of the Sodo line. Sure, it's one thing to get Ex-Aid's Ghost Gamer form. We've gotten movie-exclusive content as figures before, but then they also made Drive Gamer, Gaim Gamer, and Gem's Wizard Gamer. These 3 forms are exclusive to the Kamen Rider Gem spin-off, which was uploaded to YouTube and then later got a DVD release. How obscure can you get? And since I know this will be pointed out, this isn't the first time that Legend Rider forms have happened in the realm of candy toys. Gaim's Arms action line actually gave us 2 forms, Wizard Arms and Ichigo Arms. Sorry, I mean Ichigo Arms. Then, Ghost Gangan action line actually gave us some Legend Rider forms that were also from a YouTube special, so it's not even the first time that this particular one happened. What makes Sodo special, though, is that it kept that trend going consistently, or at least for Build, which was the last time that we had YouTube specials. Still counts. Number 7. It was always my understanding that when it comes to Japanese superheroes, the bad guys are the least popular thing to make merchandise for, unless you're Ultraman. But when it comes to Kamen Rider, unless your enemy is at least adjacent to the Kamen Rider aesthetic, they're probably not getting figures. Sodo has not only included enemy figures in the past, it continues to do so every year. Granted, one could suggest that they're doing it less and less every year, but the last few waves of 01's line show us that they're not entirely off the table. Speaking of, number 6. Another thing you're probably aware of from listening to the podcast is the fact that Sodo, along with several other candy toy products, has its own dedicated questionnaire for customers to fill out online. They usually include things like where you purchased the product or what aspects of the toy line interest you or disinterest you, but a notable inclusion is where you can tell the Sodo team exactly what you would like to see them make next. I say all this because the last few waves of 01's Sodo line includes several non-riders that were all requested by fans. The Trilobite Magia was our first taste of enemy characters in 01. From there, they were able to make a regular Humagear, then a first generation Humagear, then the Barotha Magia from episode 1, and then most of the Dodo Magia variants. It's one thing to include these enemy characters so late in the game. It's another thing to include Humagear. Now, technically, you could make these into enemies with the red stickers, but they also include blue stickers, which means that this might be Soto's first civilian character. But 01 has been filled with plenty of other surprises as well. Number 5. In the 5th wave, we finally got a figure of the show's most recent writer at the time, Kamen Rider Thouser, as well as Kamen Rider Geo content that we were promised before Geo ended. Unexpectedly, we also received a particular box in the wave, which contained nothing but accessories. Like, did you want to replicate that scene in the Geo Summer movie where all the riders do a rider kick and have their show titles behind them? No? Well, that's an option, at least for the series that Soda has covered so far. But did you also want to display Grand Geo with every single weapon that he's used in the show? You've got that too! There are so many rider series that haven't been covered in Soto or Soto Chronicle, yet here we have weapons from Agito, Forze, and Ryuki, fully realized for no other reason than to create scenes with Geo. It's beautiful. Oh, and it also came with hands for 01. That's neat. Number 4. When it comes to forms that don't appear in the show or movies, we think of the Gambarizing arcade game. Though they are best known for Legend Rider forms in Gaim, Ghost, and Xaid, they provided a slew of best match forms for build. Among them are Penguin Skater, Dog Mike, and Turtle Watch. But at some point, there were some forms that appeared on toy packaging for the full bottles, but never appeared in the arcade game. These forms are Spider Cooler, Bat Engine, Hachi Marine, Sai Dryer, and they never actually appeared anywhere aside from concept art for the series. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, when Kamen Rider Geo debuted, it was noticeable that none of the ride watches that they released had any sort of exclusive content in the game. Despite that, we definitely saw unique forms for all the ride watches representing the main riders, which I like to call the packaging exclusives. Because these were such a weird thing, it was sort of unprecedented to see that Soto would actually make every single one of these. We got Agito armor, Ryuki armor, Blade, Hibiki, Kabuto, Den-O, Kiva. All of them were in Soto, with the same amount of love that the other rider armors got. This is also notable for causing one of the most egregious parts of Geo's Soto line, which is the shortage of bodies to put armors onto, but that feels like a topic for another day. Number 3. By the time we got the Geo, it was already well established that Soto was making figures of any and every character with Kamen Rider in their name. Even so, I personally had my doubts we'd ever even see anything for the Mi Riders or future riders that come from Gates Revive's timeline. I mean, when I saw the Mi Ride watches, I figured that those gadgets were the only thing we'd ever get in terms of characterization. I'm glad I was proven wrong on at least 3 of them. So, when Ride Plus was announced, I was excited. It was a wave with 5 items, 3 of which were Shinobi, Quiz, and Kikai. There was, however, one surprise waiting for us. Kamen Rider Decade ended up taking center stage in this wave, with an accessory set that was more like Figuarts than it was like Soto. And then they took it a step further with Ride Plus 2. This included D-End, as well as the last 2 Mi Riders, Ginga and Hatari from the Shinobi spinoff. And then there's also Kashin, which appeared in 1 episode, and probably deserves a video of his own one day for various reasons. While on the surface it may seem like business as usual for Soto, the head of the Soto department at the time, Mr. G, shared a story with us once Geo ended. According to G, Ride Plus was actually an impossible wave for them to do, because it was just a side thing with a bunch of unique molds that, unlike regular Soto, didn't have a separate armor set. They were made to fit into one box, which meant the budget was very different. And you can definitely tell when you get these figures because they use a ton of stickers. When it came time to do the second wave, they were actually considering raising the price just to justify the cost of having even more unique molds than the first wave had. In the end, though, they decided that they would just take this loss and stay consistent with the price. Legitimately, We should actually be thankful for how much they sacrifice in order to deliver their products. There's no telling how much work truly goes into every line at Bandai, or whether this is just a unique thing to Sodo, but having this unique look into the thought process behind the line is very eye-opening at times. Number 2. Like I said before, Sodo began with Exade in 2016, and after a whole toy line with Exade and a whole toy line with Build, it kind of just went without saying that Sodo only moves forward, never looking back. And yet, Geo is a celebration of the Heisei era as a whole, so there was a chance to break that tradition. During Geo, we got Sodo Chronicle. This was a whole separate line that essentially took writers that predated Exade and gave them new figures in the Sodo design aesthetic. With series like Double, Den-O, O's, Kuga, and now Gaim, it's apparent that their aim was for more popular series. Time will tell how many series they'll eventually make into Sodo, but I'm really hoping for Forza. An honorable mention. So I talked before about Build's Dr. Game form and how it's not actually part of the Gombarizing arcade game exclusively. It's a movie form. But Sodo did do its first game exclusive not too long ago. Geo's final wave included some surprising additions, and among them were Decade Armor Phai's form, which is based on Phai's Axel form. This is a design exclusive to the Butoba Soul arcade game, which means it has its own dedicated medal. I didn't really have much to say beyond that, so that's why it's an honorable mention. And finally, number 1. Imagine, you're a fan of Kamen Rider Exade. You've collected everything they've released for the Sodo line. It's covered a surprising amount of content, even the movie forms. But now that they've moved on to Build, there's no way you're gonna be able to get forms that appeared in the Another Ending trilogy. That's where Sodo pulls its biggest game changer. Something that most Kamen Rider figure lines never get to do. When Build reached its 8th wave, towards the end of the line, it included Laser X, as well as Gem's God Maximum Gamer form. Then the next wave would include another Paradox. This has since become a bold standard for Sodo. Things such as Build's Rabbit Dragon form or Kamen Rider's Tsukiyomi. These things appear in the final episodes of the show, so there's no way it would have made it into the regular Sodo line, but they managed to find a way. And to top it all off, 01 also included the forms for Grease's movie, which, if you listen to the podcast, we were fully accepting that that wasn't going to be a possibility, or if it was, it would just be on Premium Bandai. During Geo, Sodo's bold declaration was the simple phrase, Sodo wa yaru. This phrase loosely translates to say, I will make it into Sodo. As they explain, most everything from the show and movies would make its way into Sodo, even if it takes a while. When Tsukiyomi debuted at the end of Geo, there was already a prototype of the helmet design posted on the Candy Toy blog, along with a bullet point list of all the Geo content that would be made for the next series. As of 01's last wave, they've officially finished fulfilling that promise for Geo. The thing that I love about Sodo is that you don't have to ask if a lot of things can be made. It's just a matter of when. It means your collection won't be 100% complete. It will be 1000% complete. Thanks for watching. If this video was nerdy enough for you, be sure to subscribe and give the Soda Pop podcast a listen. If you want to support the Black Lives Matter movement, look at the links below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Keep it juicy.